Of course.
But
what about Calvin, Sheriff? What about that case?
Calvin
Barry?
I'm very confident in that case. That case, I believe, is closed. That's another person that is not happy with the outcome of the investigation. But again, we went back, worked with her hired private investigator who used to be a detective down in Broward County.
Yep.
Answered about 105 different questions, scenarios, had soil tested out of the canal, all kinds of different things. So that one I'm very confident about. That was headed up by actually our current chief down there, and who was assistant chief for me at the time, really took that one on. And I mean, he'd be better to answer that question. But yeah, that's another frequent flyer that I hear from often that's not happy with the outcome of that case. But I'm very confident with that investigation.
Thank you for your willingness to talk about it.
Sheriff Richard DelToro publicly claimed he was very confident in the Calvin Barry investigation. Also claimed soil was tested out of the canal. He further stated, "We answered about 105 different questions." Let's examine these claims. March 10th, 2021. Calvin Barry faithfully worked a full day delivering the U.S. mail in Stuart, Florida. After a full day's work, Calvin arrived home in Port St. Lucie at approximately 6:30 p.m. Once Calvin entered his home, he was never seen or heard from again. At 2:30 p.m., while Calvin was at work, phone records show another individual was at his home with his wife. 3 days later, Calvin's body was found floating in the canal behind his home, a canal that had already been searched. Within 48 hours, PSLPD conducted no homicide investigation and quickly concluded no foul play. At that time, the medical examiner's manner of death remained pending while awaiting toxicology results. 3 months later, after receiving the toxicology results, the medical examiner ruled accidental drowning, complicated by diphenhydramine, the active ingredient in Benadryl. Yet the autopsy found 0 water in his lungs, a finding inconsistent with a typical drowning. Question 1. How did Calvin die? Question 2. Who was at the house while Calvin was at work? Question 3. Why was there a near-lethal level of Benadryl in Calvin's body but no residue in his stomach? Question 4. Why was this never investigated as a homicide? None of these questions were ever answered. Not by you, Sheriff. Not by your officers. My private investigator is still waiting. But years later, Sheriff DelToro claimed, "Soil was tested. Where is the test?" Sheriff DelToro claimed, "We answered 105 questions. Where are the answers? Where are the records?" On June 3, 2025, when the chief was asked under oath whether PSLPD investigators collected soil samples, PSLPD Chief Leo Niemczyk replied, "I don't know." What the public does not know is, on September 25, 2025, Sheriff Richard DelToro privately apologized to me in his office in front of witnesses, after acknowledging that the information that he provided to the reporter was inaccurate. Everything Sheriff DelToro publicly stated here about my brother's investigation was demonstrably false. Sheriff DelToro, since you apologized to me in private, when will you fulfill your ethical and moral responsibility to publicly apologize? Apologize to the CBS 12 News reporter, Mike Magnoli. Apologize to the citizens of St. Lucie County and correct the record. The public deserves accurate public statements from their sheriff. Truth deserves a public correction. Sheriff DelToro. Calvin Barry's case deserves the truth, not lies, not manufactured evidence, not a botched investigation. Correct the record. Because when the truth isn't pursued, no citizen is safe in St. Lucie County. In memory of Calvin Barry, I will make sure that everybody knows your name, the whole world. Dornette Mullings. A promise kept. Justice interrupted. Justice begins with truth. Public trust begins with truth. Sheriff DelToro, truth begins with you.